The merciless Nevada sun beat down on the land of Rancho Esperanza as Sofia Rodriguez watched Pacific Western Railroad men drive spikes into her property. Her fingers clenched the worn butt of the Winchester rifle that had belonged to her late husband, Manuel. 3 years had passed since he was found dead near the Utah border, and now she alone faced the greatest threat to the heritage she had sworn to protect. "Mrs. Rodriguez," called William Preston, the railroad representative, adjusting his dusty suit. "Be reasonable. Our offer is more than generous for a piece of land that can barely support a few head of cattle." Sophia kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the Rocky Mountains met the cobalt-blue sky. Her black dress, already faded with time, billowed in the hot desert breeze. "This ranch has been in my family for 2 generations, Mr. Preston. It's not for sale." A few feet away, hidden among the rocks that marked the beginning of the Paiute's sacred lands, Black Eagle watched the scene with interest. The lone warrior knew that woman well, even though she didn't know it. In recent months, he had seen her struggle against drought, against cattle rustlers, and against the prejudices of the residents of Silver Creek, the nearest town. "The railroad will pass through these lands, Mrs. Rodriguez," Preston continued, his tone now more threatening. "With or without your cooperation, progress waits for no one." "Progress?" Sophia spat out the words. "Is that what they call land theft now?" At that moment, Sheriff Malcolm Curtis arrived on horseback, kicking up a cloud of red dust. He was a middle-aged man carrying the weight of decades of upholding the law in a lawless territory. "Any problems around here?" Preston smiled, revealing tobacco-yellowed teeth. "Just a civilized discussion about the future of this region, Sheriff." Sophia lowered the rifle, but maintained a firm stance. "These men are trespassing on my property." The sheriff dismounted with a tired sigh. "Preston, you know you cannot demarcate land without the proper documents. Mrs. Rodriguez has legitimate rights to this property." "For now," Preston adjusted his hat. "But things change quickly in the West, Sheriff. Pacific Western has powerful friends in Carson City." Black Eagle watched as the railroad men departed, leaving behind their stakes as a silent promise to return. The Paiute warrior knew that kind of threat well. His people had faced similar situations in recent decades, seeing their ancestral lands swallowed up by the greed of white men. Sophia waited until Preston and his men disappeared into the distance before turning to the sheriff. "Thanks, Malcolm, but we both know they'll be back." "Sophia," the sheriff hesitated, "perhaps you should consider the offer. A woman alone." "Don't start," she interrupted him. "This ranch is all I have. It's the only thing I have left of Manuel, of the life we built together." In the town of Silver Creek, rumors about the widow Rodriguez and her stubbornness were already running rampant in old McAllister's saloon. Between sips of cheap whiskey and poker games, bets were made on how long she would last before selling the ranch. That night, as Sophia checked the fences of her property in the fading light, Black Eagle finally decided to reveal himself. He emerged from the shadows like a spirit, making her horse neigh nervously. "You've got some nerve, ranch woman," he said in clear English, though marked by a distinct accent. "But courage alone will not be enough against the railroad men." Sophia drew her weapon with surprising speed. "Who are you?" "Someone who, like you, fights to protect what's yours." Black Eagle remained motionless, his black eyes reflecting the last glow of the day. "The white men call this land Nevada, but my people know it by other, much older names." "You're Paiute." Sophia lowered the gun slightly, but remained alert. "What do you want?" "Offer a solution to our mutual problems." He stepped forward, revealing a face marked by scars and wisdom. "The railroad wants your land because it borders mine. Together, we control the only viable passage for the tracks in this region." Sophia frowned, starting to understand. And what do you suggest? A wedding. Black Eagle spoke simply. By the law of the whites, a widow can lose her land more easily than a married woman. And by the laws of my people, a warrior married to a landowner has more power to protect both territories. The desert wind blew stronger, carrying with it the distant howl of a coyote. Sophia felt the weight of that proposal on her shoulders, along with all the implications that such an unusual arrangement could bring. "Why would I trust you?" she asked finally. "Because we both know that alone we will be defeated," he replied. "But together, maybe we have a chance." The sun finally disappeared completely, leaving only a purple sky dotted with the first stars. Sofia Rodriguez, the widow who had sworn never to depend on any man again, found herself faced with a choice that would change not only her destiny, but the future of two cultures that destiny had decided to intertwine. "Give me until tomorrow," she said finally. "I need to think." Black Eagle nodded with an almost imperceptible movement. "I'll be waiting at the top of that hill at sunrise." And just as he appeared, he disappeared into the shadows of the night, leaving Sophia with her thoughts and the weight of a decision that could be her salvation or her ruin. The wind continued to blow through the valley, carrying with it the seeds of a story that was just beginning. A story about love, honor, and the fight for survival in a land as beautiful as it was unforgiving. Sophia spent the night awake, her thoughts oscillating between Agia Negra's proposal and Manuel's memories. The nearly burned-out candles cast uneasy shadows on the ranch walls as she reread the last letter her late husband had written, kept like a treasure in a cedar box. The next morning, even before the rooster crowed, Sophia was already on her feet. She dressed in her best dress, a navy blue outfit she reserved for Sundays, and tied her black hair into a tight bun. In the cracked mirror of her room, she saw the reflection of a woman different from the hopeful young woman who had arrived in Nevada years ago. The sun was still just a promise on the horizon when she led her horse up the designated hill. Black Eagle was already there, sitting on a flat rock, so still that he seemed to be part of the landscape itself. He wore a curious mix of traditional Paiute clothing and white man's gear, a leather vest over a cotton shirt, dark pants, and beaded moccasins. "I thought a lot about your proposal," Sophia began, dismounting her horse. "And I about the consequences," Black Eagle replied, his eyes fixed on the awakening valley. "My people won't approve, neither will your people. Since when do I care what you guys think about Silver Creek?" Sophia let out a bitter laugh. "They already call me the stubborn Mexican behind my back. Some even whisper that I killed Manuel to keep the ranch." The Paiute warrior rose with the grace of a predator. "I met your husband," he revealed, surprising Sophia. "He respected our lands, never hunting more than necessary. He was one of the few white men who treated my people with dignity." Unexpected tears stung Sophia's eyes. "Why didn't you ever tell me that before?" "Because until yesterday we were just distant neighbors, watching each other across invisible borders." He approached, his footsteps silent on the dry earth. "But now we need to be more." "How would it work?" Sophia asked, practical as always. "This arrangement? By white law, we would be married in the Silver Creek Registry Office. By the tradition of my people, we would have a sacred ceremony. You would keep your ranch, I my land. Together, we would form a barrier that the railroad could not easily break." "What about—" Sophia hesitated, a blush staining her cheeks. "Other marital obligations?" Black Eagle studied her with an intensity that made her heart race. "I am a warrior, not an animal. Respect is the first law of my people. Our union will be whatever we decide it to be." On the horizon, the sun finally emerged, painting the sky with colors that Sophia had never seen seem so meaningful. It was as if nature itself was blessing this unlikely alliance. "I accept," she said firmly. but I have the means. A slight smile curved the warrior's lips. Speak. First, I will continue to run Rancho Esperanza my way. Second, I want to learn about your people, your traditions. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Sophia raised her chin defiantly. And third, I need to know your real name. Black Eagle is my real name, given by my father after my first hunt, he explained. But among white people, when necessary, I use John Black Eagle. John, Sophia tried the name, finding it strangely inappropriate for such a unique man. To my people I will always be Black Eagle, he stated. For you, I can be whoever you choose. The moment was interrupted by the distant sound of hooves. In the valley below, 3 Pacific Western riders approached Sophia's ranch, led by the unmistakable Preston. They don't waste time, Sophia muttered, her hand instinctively reaching for the rifle she always carried. Then we won't lose either, Black Eagle declared. Let's go to Silver Creek now. The sooner we make our union official, the stronger we will be. Sophia nodded, getting back on her horse. Sheriff Curtis can be our witness. He won't approve, but he's honorable enough to respect the law. As they rode side by side toward town, Sophia couldn't help but notice how Black Eagle moved as if he were part of the horse itself, his posture revealing years of experience on Nevada's wild trails. He was a man who carried the weight of 2 cultures on his shoulders, just as she carried the weight of her own past. In Silver Creek, the dusty streets were still nearly deserted, just a few merchants setting up shop and the inevitable drunks from the night before staggering home. Still, the sight of Sofia Rodriguez riding alongside a Paiute warrior caused more commotion than a herd of buffalo. The sheriff's office was in a small wooden building between the bank and the barber shop. Malcolm Curtis was at his desk, a half-empty cup of coffee next to a stack of wanted posters. Sophia? He stood up, surprised, his eyes switching between her and Black Eagle. What is happening? We need you as a witness, Malcolm, Sophia announced, her voice firm despite the nervousness she felt. Let's get married. The sheriff dropped his cup, staining the posters with coffee. You… what? It's a decision made, Black Eagle interjected, his presence filling the small room. We will follow all necessary laws. Malcolm Curtis ran a hand over his tired face, seeming to age 10 years in a minute. Sophia, are you sure? People already say what they want, she interrupted him. Now, are you going to help us or not? The sheriff took a long look at the strange couple in front of him, the determined Mexican widow and the proud Paiute warrior. Finally, he sighed deeply. May God help us. Let's go to the registry office. As they walked down the main street, the window curtains moved and whispers spread like wildfire. Sophia kept her head up, even though her heart was beating wildly. Beside him, Black Eagle walked with the same silent dignity as always, as if the looks and murmurs couldn't touch him. Fate, Sophia thought, had a strange sense of humor. 3 years ago, she had buried a husband. Now, she was about to marry a man she barely knew, uniting not just 2 lives, but 2 worlds that seemed impossible to reconcile. However, as she watched Black Eagle's resolute profile, Sophia felt a strange peace settle in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just an alliance of convenience. Maybe it was the beginning of something much bigger than themselves. The Silver Creek Registry Office was a narrow, stuffy room, with stacks of yellowing documents covering every available surface. Mr. Whitaker, a thin man with gold-rimmed glasses, watched with his mouth open as Sheriff Curtis explained the situation. Her ink-stained fingers trembled slightly as she prepared the wedding documents. This is unusual, he muttered, casting nervous glances at Black Eagle, who stood impassively beside Sophia. Just do your job, Whitaker. The sheriff sighed, adjusting his badge. The law makes no distinction as to who can marry as long as they are consenting adults. Sophia kept her posture straight, ignoring the curious looks that gathered outside the registry office window. The news of her marriage to a Paiute warrior must have spread throughout Silver Creek by now. She could imagine the sharp tongues in McAllister's salon, spinning increasingly outrageous theories. "I need your signatures here," Whitaker indicated, pushing the papers toward him. Sophia signed first, her firm handwriting contrasting with the tremor in the clerk's hands. Agia Negra, to everyone's surprise, signed with the same ease. "Where did you learn to write?" Sophia whispered, curious. "At the mission where I grew up," he replied quietly. "Not all white men wanted to destroy us. Some wanted to teach us." Sheriff Curtis signed as a witness, and just like that, in less than 15 minutes, Sophia Rodriguez officially became Mrs. The simplicity of the act contrasted sharply with its importance. "Now," Black Eagle spoke, his voice calm but authoritative, "we must perform the ceremony of my people." "Today?" Sophia asked, surprised. "The moon is full. It is the appropriate time." His eyes met hers. "Unless you'd rather wait." "No," she replied firmly. "We'll do it your way too." When they left the registry office, they found a small crowd forming. Among them, Sophia recognized Preston and his men, newly arrived in the city. The railroad representative watched them with a mixture of disbelief and barely contained fury. "It doesn't change anything," he shouted as they passed. "Pacific Western will not be stopped by a sham marriage." Black Eagle stopped, slowly turning to face Preston. The silence that followed was thick, like the fog that precedes a storm. "Watch your words, white man. You're not just dealing with a lonely widow anymore." The veiled threat in his voice made Preston take a step back, although he kept his gaze defiant. Sophia noticed that several residents were watching the scene with renewed interest. Some even seemed pleased to see the arrogant railroad representative confronted. At dusk, Sophia followed Black Eagle into Paiute lands. The path wound between rock formations that seemed like silent guardians of the desert. As they advanced, she noticed subtle changes in the landscape: markings on stones, small natural altars decorated with feathers and beads. "This is a sacred place," Black Eagle explained, dismounting near a circle of stones. "My ancestors held ceremonies here hundreds of years ago." A small group of Paiutes awaited them, including an old man with long gray braids and a middle-aged woman who Sophia discovered was Black Eagle's sister, Luna Crescente. Their looks were a mixture of curiosity and reserve. The ceremony was conducted in the Paiute language, with Black Eagle occasionally translating for Sophia. The ritual involved smoke from sacred herbs, ancient chants, and the exchange of promises that transcended language barriers. Sophia felt touched by the profound spirituality of the moment, so different from the brief procedure at the registry office. "You are now part of two tribes," Crescent Luna said in halting English, approaching Sophia after the ceremony. "It won't be easy." "Nothing in my life has been easy," Sophia replied, accepting the beaded necklace the woman offered her. "But I always found the strength to carry on." When they returned to Rancho Esperanza, night had already fallen. Sophia felt a strange mix of emotions when she saw Black Eagle dismount in front of the house that until then had been his solitary refuge. The reality of his new situation was beginning to set in. "I prepared the guest room," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "No need to worry," he replied, understanding her apprehension. "As I said before, respect is the first law. Everything has its time." That night, lying in her bed, Sophia heard the night sounds of the desert mixed with Black Eagle's occasional footsteps in the hallway. It was strange to have another presence in the house after being alone for so long. Strange, but not necessarily bad. The next morning, Sophia woke up to the aroma of coffee. He found Black Eagle in the kitchen, preparing a simple meal with provisions he had brought. "Among my people, sharing food is sacred," he explained, offering her a cup. The moment was interrupted by the sounds of approaching hooves. Through the window, they saw 3 Pacific Western cavalrymen riding toward the ranch. Sophia recognized Preston's signature hat. "They don't give up," she muttered, instinctively reaching for her rifle. "No," Black Eagle agreed, his dark eyes fixed on the invaders. But now they faced not just a stubborn widow and a lone warrior, but a coming together of 2 forces they never expected to see together. Sophia looked at her new husband, realizing that despite the peculiar circumstances of their union, she had found a formidable ally. "Maybe, in time, I could find something more." "Let's welcome them together," she said, straightening her shoulders. Black Eagle nodded, a faint smile curving his lips. "Together," he repeated, the word carrying a weight that went beyond their simple alliance of convenience. The first month of Sophia and Black Eagle's marriage brought subtle changes to Rancho Esperanza. Mornings now began with the aroma of coffee mixed with Paiute herbs, while nights were filled with stories exchanged in hushed tones on the porch under a starry sky that seemed vaster than ever. Sophia discovered that her new husband had a deep knowledge of the land that constantly surprised her. Black Eagle showed him medicinal plants hidden among the rocks, taught him ancient water conservation techniques, and revealed secret trails that cut through the mountains, knowledge that proved invaluable during that particularly dry summer. "My people have survived in these lands for generations," he explained one afternoon, as they checked out a half-hidden spring that Sophia had never noticed. "Water always finds its way, you just need to know where to look." His presence also kept away the cattle rustlers who used to haunt the property. Black Eagle's reputation as a warrior was well known, and few dared challenge a man who could track a horse for days across the desert without leaving a trace of his own. But not everything was rosy. The Pacific Western Railway continued to press, now in more subtle and insidious ways. Rumors began to circulate in Silver Creek about forged land titles, about Manuel's old debts that could jeopardize ownership of the ranch. "They're trying to divide us," Sophia commented one night, after another tense day in the city, where some stores were beginning to refuse her money. "They want the community to turn against us." "It's an ancient tactic," Black Eagle replied, his eyes fixed on the distant mountains. "First they isolate, then they attack." The couple found an unlikely ally in McAllister, the saloon owner. The old Irishman, who had lost land to the railroad years earlier in Kansas, began sharing valuable information about the movements of Preston and his men. "They brought in a lawyer from Carson City," McAllister reported one hot afternoon as Sophia picked up supplies at her establishment. "One Harrison Blake, known for settled land disputes in favor of the railroads." The news worried Sophia more than she would like to admit. She knew that documents could be forged, that judges could be bought, that the law did not always favor the righteous. "We need our own papers in order," she told Black Eagle that night. "Every title, every receipt, every agreement made by Manuel or his people." As they organized documents by lamplight, Sophia couldn't help but notice how Black Eagle's hands occasionally brushed against hers, sending unexpected shivers down her spine. The physical proximity between them, previously so carefully maintained, began to awaken sensations that she tried to ignore. The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching hooves. Crescent Luna, Black Eagle's sister, arrived breathless with disturbing news. "The railroad men are marking our sacred lands," she said in her mix of Paiute and English. "They say they found gold in the mountains." "Gold?" Sophia frowned. "These mountains have been mined for decades. There was never any gold there." "It doesn't matter if it's true," Black Eagle replied, his voice thick with bitterness. "It's just another excuse to take our land." The next morning, Sheriff Curtis rode to the ranch with more troubling news. Harrison Blake, the railroad's lawyer, had petitioned the territorial court, questioning the validity of the marriage between Sophia and Black Eagle. They claim the union has no legal value because it mixes different jurisdictions, Malcolm explained uncomfortably. They're using old laws about marriages between whites and natives. Sophia felt her blood boil. That's ridiculous. You yourself were our witness at the registry office. And I'll testify again if I need to, the sheriff assured. But you guys need to prepare. Blake has influence in Carson City. Black Eagle remained silent throughout the conversation, but Sophia could feel the tension emanating from him. When the sheriff left, he finally spoke. Maybe we should consider other options. What other options? Sophia asked, fearing the answer. My people have relatives in Utah territory. Could we? No, she interrupted him firmly. I will not run away. This land is rightfully ours, both yours and mine. Something changed in Black Eagle's gaze at that moment. The use of our did not go unnoticed, nor did the ferocity with which Sophia defended not only her ranch, but Paiute land as well. Then we will fight, he said simply, but his words carried a different weight now. That night, a summer storm swept across the valley, bringing with it lightning that lit up the mountains like distant fireworks. Sophia watched from the balcony as Black Eagle joined her, closer than usual. My people say that storms like these are signs of great changes to come, he commented, his arm lightly brushing hers. Sophia turned to face him, noticing how the lightning cast dancing shadows across his strong face. Good or bad changes? It depends on how we weather the storm. His eyes met hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Together or apart? The thunder that followed seemed to shake the very foundations of the ranch, but Sophia barely noticed. He was very aware of Black Eagle's proximity, the heat emanating from him, the electricity that didn't just come from the storm. Together, she whispered, and this time the word carried a meaning far deeper than their partnership of convenience. Black Eagle slowly raised his hand, his fingers tracing the contour of her face with a delicacy that seemed impossible for a warrior. Sophia closed her eyes, allowing herself, for the first time since Manuel's death, to feel something other than the determination to survive. The storm continued into the night, but inside Rancho Esperanza, something new was beginning to bloom. Something as inevitable as the changing seasons, as natural as the rain that finally fell upon the parched land. Attorney Harrison Blake's arrival at Silver Creek coincided with the first winds of autumn. He was an elegant man in a dark suit and leather briefcase, who seemed out of place among the city's dusty streets and rustic establishments. His temporary office was set up on the second floor of the bank, from where he could watch the activity of Main Street like a vulture studying its next prey. Sophia met the lawyer for the first time on a particularly tense morning, when she went to the bank to deposit payment for the sale of some cattle. Blake intercepted her on her way out, his smile as artificial as the shine on his gold cufflinks. Lady Black Eagle, he greeted her, pronouncing the name with deliberate irony. Or would you still prefer to be called Mrs. Rodriguez? My name is not your concern, Mr. Blake, Sophia replied dryly, trying to walk past him. On the contrary, your name, and everything it implies, is exactly my concern. He subtly blocked her path. I have some interesting documents here about your late husband. It appears that Mr. Rodriguez had complex businesses before his death. Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. Manuel was an honest man. Honest? Blake laughed softly. It's interesting how the memory of the dead tends to become more golden over time. How about we discuss some unpaid loans, or perhaps certain goods of dubious origin? You're lying, Sophia hissed, even as a seed of doubt began to sprout in her heart. The truth sometimes hurts, ma'am. Blake removed an envelope from her briefcase. But I'm willing to be reasonable. Pacific Western can make the problems of the past go away for a suitable price. At that moment, Black Eagle emerged from the hardware store across the street. His sharp gaze immediately caught the tension in Sophia's posture. Within a few steps, he was at her side, his presence silent but intimidating. Blake took a step back, but kept her calculated smile. Ah, the famous Paiute warrior. You know, there are also some interesting questions about the legality of Indian lands in this region. Your threats are like wind in the desert, Black Eagle replied calmly. They make noise, but they don't move mountains. The lawyer adjusted his tie, trying to maintain his composure. Think about my offer. Time is something you don't have much of. When Blake pulled away, Sophia felt her legs weaken. Black Eagle discreetly held her by the elbow, guiding her away from the curious eyes that gathered on the street. He's lying about Manuel, Sophia whispered, more to herself than her husband. It has to be. Black Eagle led her to her horses, tied in front of the blacksmith. Sometimes men carry secrets that die with them. You said you met Manuel. Sophia glared at him. Did he ever mention problems? Debts? A flash of hesitation crossed the warrior's face. It is not my place to judge the dead. Please, she insisted. I need to know. Black Eagle sighed deeply. The last time I saw him, a few days before his death, he was disturbed. He talked about meeting a man in Utah, about solving something important. Sophia felt the world spin. The mysterious circumstances of Manuel's death had always tormented her, but she had buried those doubts along with him. Now, they re-emerged like ghosts thirsty for truth. Why didn't you ever tell me this before? Because I saw in your eyes what I see now, he replied softly. Pain, and some pains are best left numb. They rode in silence back to the ranch, each lost in their own thoughts. The afternoon sun painted elongated shadows on the ground, like dark fingers pointing to long-buried secrets. On the balcony, Luna Crescent was waiting for them with urgent news. The railroad men are digging in the sacred lands, she reported, her voice shaking with anger. They say they found gold marks. It's a trap, Black Eagle declared. They want to provoke us, make us appear to defend the lands. That way they will have an excuse to use force. Sophia scanned the horizon, where the mountains held not only the ancestral lands of the Paiute, but also possibly Manuel's last secrets. An idea began to form in his mind. What if we investigated, she suggested. Not just the excavations, but also the path Manuel took to Utah. Maybe there's a connection. Black Eagle studied her for a long time. It would be dangerous. Blake and his men are waiting for any excuse to act against us. More dangerous is standing by while they destroy everything we have, Sophia argued. If Manuel was involved in something, if there is something that can help us fight the railroad, I wouldn't go alone, he said, his voice soft but determined. For better or worse, we are now one. Sophia felt her heart accelerate at those words. In recent weeks, his relationship with Black Eagle had transformed into something deeper than a simple alliance. There were times, like now, when she would catch his gaze and see not just a warrior or an ally, but a man who was beginning to occupy a larger and larger space in her heart. Luna can run the ranch, Sophia decided. She knows our procedures, and the workers respect her. Black Eagle's sister nodded solemnly. I will take care of everything as if it were mine. As the sun set, Sophia and Black Eagle began preparing supplies for the journey. Night fell over Rancho Esperanza, bringing with it not only darkness, but also the promise of revelations that could change everything, for better or worse. Whatever the truth is about Manuel, Black Eagle said softly when they finally retired. "It doesn't change who you are." Sophia stared at him in the dim light of the hallway, realizing that, for the first time since Manuel's death, she was truly ready to face the past. And maybe, just maybe, she was also ready to embrace a future she never imagined for herself. Dawn found Sophia and Black Eagle ready to leave. The sky still carried shades of purple as they saddled their horses, providing the provisions and weapons needed for the journey. Luna Crescent watched from the balcony, her face marked by the worry she was trying to hide. "Head northeast," she advised in her mix of English and Paiute. "The spirits of the mountains are restless. The path through the valley will be safer." Sophia adjusted her horse's saddlebags, feeling the weight of Manuel's rifle against her back. Blake's words about her late husband still echoed in her mind, mixing with the doubts she had tried to ignore for so long. "Keep the railroad men away from the Holy Lands," Black Eagle instructed his sister, "but don't confront them directly. Preston and Blake are looking for any excuse for open conflict." As they rode out of the ranch's boundaries, Sophia couldn't help but look back. Rancho Esperanza, with its modest house and manicured fences, seemed smaller and more vulnerable in the dawning light. It was strange to think that just a few months ago she was fighting alone to keep him, and now she was going in search of answers, alongside a man who had entered her life as an agreement of convenience, and little by little had transformed into something much deeper. "What exactly are we looking for in Utah?" Black Eagle asked when they were already a few miles away from the ranch. "I don't know for sure," Sophia admitted, "but Manuel kept a small office in Salt Lake City. I never understood why he needed a place so far from home. Maybe there we'll find some clue about his business, or about what really happened to him." The sun rose above the horizon as they crossed the familiar territory surrounding Silver Creek. Soon they would reach wilder lands, where the trails became uncertain and the dangers more frequent. Sophia noticed how Black Eagle would occasionally stop to examine marks on the ground, or changes in vegetation that would be imperceptible to her. "There are other travelers ahead," he commented during one such stop. "3 horsemen, probably armed. They passed this way last night." "How can you be sure?" A slight smile curved the warrior's lips. "The desert speaks to those who know how to listen. Every stone turned, every branch broken, tells a story." At noon, they stopped briefly to rest their horses near a small stream. As they shared a simple meal of jerky and biscuits, Sophia took a closer look at Black Eagle. Under the bright sunlight, the scars on his face told silent stories of battles past. "What was Manuel like when you met him?" she finally asked, breaking the contemplative silence that had settled between them. Black Eagle slowly chewed before responding. "He was a restless man. He talked a lot about great opportunities, about making a fortune quickly, but there was something in his eyes, a fear that he tried to hide." "Afraid of what?" "Some fears don't have names," he replied. "They are like shadows that follow us, growing larger with each step we take." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine, remembering the last days before Manuel's death. He was more distant. He spent sleepless nights writing letters that he then burned. At the time, she attributed his strange behavior to the stress of running the ranch during a particularly severe drought. "There's something you didn't tell me about your last meeting with him, isn't there?" she asked, noticing a hesitation in Black Eagle's gaze. The Paiute warrior was silent for a long moment, as if carefully weighing his next words. "Manuel asked me to protect you if something happened to him. He said he had gotten involved with dangerous people, that he had tried to right a wrong, but that it might be too late." Sophia felt her blood run cold in her veins. "Why did you wait so long to tell me this?" "Because a promise made to a dead person is sacred," he replied, "and because I saw in your eyes that you weren't ready for certain truths yet." Before Sophia could fully process that revelation, The distant sound of hooves caught both of their attention. Black Eagle quickly put out the remains of his small fire, while Sophia readied her rifle. "The 3 knights I detected earlier," he muttered. "They are approaching too quickly to be simple travelers." Hiding behind some rocks, they watched 3 men gallop past a few hundred yards away. Sophia recognized the silver Pacific Western badge on their coats. "They know where we're going," she whispered. "Blake must have found out about the office in Salt Lake City." "Or maybe they always knew," Black Eagle suggested. "Maybe that's why they're so interested in our land now." The implication of those words weighed on Sophia like a sandstorm. What had Manuel discovered that led to his death? And why was Pacific Western so determined to take not only his ranch, but also the sacred lands of the Paiute? "We need to get to Salt Lake City before they do," she decided, already heading towards her horse. "There is a shorter way," Black Eagle reported, his eyes studying the distant mountains. "Through Paiute land. It's dangerous and few know the route, but it will give us a day's head start." Sophia mounted her horse, feeling a new determination rise in her chest. "Then that's where we'll go. I'm tired of being chased on my own lands." As they rode toward the mountains, Sophia reflected on how her life had changed in the last few months. The marriage that had begun as a survival strategy had transformed into a true partnership, based on trust and mutual respect. And now, as they chased shadows from the past, she realized that her feelings for Black Eagle had grown in ways she hadn't expected, or perhaps didn't want to admit. The sun began its descent over the horizon, painting the sky with colors reminiscent of fire and blood. Ahead, the mountains stood like silent guardians of long-buried secrets, secrets that could change not only the fate of Rancho Esperanza, but also the course of 2 lives that fate had intertwined in unexpected ways. "Whatever truth we find," Black Eagle said softly, as if reading his thoughts, "we will not face it alone." Sophia nodded, feeling a strange peace despite the dangers that awaited them. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since Manuel's death, she didn't feel alone in her journey. Dawn on the 3rd day of the journey found Sophia and Black Eagle crossing a narrow passage between ancient rocks. The secret path through Paiute lands was treacherous, with deep gorges and steep slopes that required total concentration from the riders. "This trail is 1,000 years old," Black Eagle explained, his low voice echoing against the rock walls. "My ancestors used it to escape enemies or trade with other tribes." Sophia looked at the markings on the stones, ancient symbols that told stories she couldn't read. His horse stepped carefully, as if he too felt the weight of the history of that place. "Did Manuel know this path?" she asked, noticing how Black Eagle tensed his shoulders slightly at the mention of the name. "No," he replied after a pause. "Few outside of my people know about these trails. It's one of the reasons we still exist. We've always had escape routes that white people couldn't find." The day progressed as they climbed higher and higher into the mountains. The air became thinner, and Sophia noticed that small tufts of snow still lingered in some shadows, even in the heat of late summer. During a stop to rest the horses, Black Eagle suddenly became alert. His eyes scanned the horizon with the intensity of his namesake bird. "Something wrong?" Sophia asked, instinctively checking her rifle. "Smoke." He pointed to a distant spot. "In the West Valley. There shouldn't be anyone camped in this area." Cautiously, they approached the location. Hidden behind a rocky outcrop, they observed a makeshift camp where 3 Western Pacific men were resting their horses. "How did you get here?" Sophia whispered. "You said no one knew these trails." "Someone must have revealed the way," Black Eagle replied, his voice thick with concern. "But who?" The answer came in the form of a 4th horseman approaching the camp, an elderly man wearing traditional Paiute clothing mixed with Western pieces. "Silent Snake," Black Eagle murmured, a note of betrayal in his voice. He was one of the tribe's most respected advisors, until he began negotiating information with the whites. Sophia watched the old Indian receive a bag that probably contained money. So Pacific Western is buying not just land, but also loyalties. The railroad understands that knowledge is power, Black Eagle commented bitterly, especially knowledge about secret paths through the mountains. They waited until the group left before continuing their journey, now even more cautious. The sun was beginning to set when they reached a small plateau protected by high rocks. "We'll camp here," Black Eagle decided. "It is a sacred place, used by generations of warriors on their spiritual journeys." As they prepared a small camp, Sophia noticed ancient paintings on the rocky walls, figures of men, animals, and mysterious symbols that seemed to tell stories from time immemorial. "What do they mean?" she asked, her fingers gently tracing the faded contours. "They're memories," Black Eagle replied, approaching. "Each symbol tells a story of great hunts, wars, intertribal marriages, sacred visions." Sophia felt the warmth of his closeness, more aware than ever of the calm strength that emanated from his presence. In the last few days, something had changed between them. The silences had become more meaningful, the looks longer. "How will this story be remembered?" she asked softly. "A Mexican widow and a Paiute warrior chasing ghosts in the mountains?" Black Eagle gently touched his face, a gesture as unexpected as it was welcome. "Some stories are too deep to be painted on stone." The moment was interrupted by a distant sound, horses' hooves approaching in the gathering darkness. Quickly, they put out their small fire and hid among the rocks. 3 horsemen passed through the valley below, their silhouettes silhouetted against the twilight sky. They weren't Pacific Western men, but bandits. Sophia recognized one of them as part of the gang that occasionally terrorized the Silver Creek region. "They're following our trail," Black Eagle whispered. "Maybe the railroad hired more than just bureaucrats to stop us." Sophia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of the night. "The closer we get to Salt Lake City, the more obstacles appear. What did Manuel discover that was so important?" "Tomorrow we will cross the most dangerous territory," Black Eagle replied, his eyes still fixed on the retreating knights. "If there's anything to find out, it'll have to wait until we're safe on the other side." That night, as they alternately stood guard, Sophia reflected on how her life had changed since Black Eagle's arrival. The marriage that had begun as a survival strategy had transformed into something deeper, a partnership based on trust, respect, and increasingly, feelings she still hesitated to name. During her watch shift, she observed Black Eagle sleeping, his normally watchful face now relaxed, almost vulnerable. How many secrets did he still keep? How many ancient stories ran in your blood? The full moon illuminated the mountains with a silvery light, transforming the rocky terrain into an almost mystical scene. Sophia thought of Manuel, of his last restless days, of his burned letters. He thought about Pacific Western and its determination to take not only his ranch but also the sacred lands of the Paiute. And she thought about her heart, which was slowly learning to beat a new rhythm, no longer that of the lonely widow fighting to keep her land, but that of a woman rediscovering love amid the ancient paths of a people she had learned to respect. Dawn would bring new dangers, but for now, under the starry blanket of the Nevada sky, Sophia allowed herself to feel hope. Whatever truth they found in Salt Lake City, she was no longer alone in her search. Dawn brought with it a dense fog that covered the mountains like a ghostly cloak. Sophia and Black Eagle dismantled their camps in silence, each movement calculated to not attract unwanted attention. The proximity of the bandits the night before had left them in a state of constant alert. "The valley ahead is the most dangerous," Black Eagle explained as he checked the horses' girths. The ancient spirits call it the Path of Shadows. Many warriors have lost their way there, deceived by the echoes and mist. Sophia observed the landscape in front of her, where the rocky walls seemed to merge with the low clouds. How long until Salt Lake City? If we survive the crossing, 2 days. He hesitated before continuing. There's something I need to tell you about Manuel. Something I've kept for too long. Sophia's heart accelerated. What is it? The last time I saw him, he was carrying documents, Pacific Western maps and contracts. Black Eagle avoided his gaze. He said he had discovered something big, something that could change everything. But he was also scared. He talked about betrayal and lies. Why did you wait so long to tell me this? Sophia asked, her voice shaking slightly. Because he made me promise that he would only reveal it if we got to this point. If Sophia ever comes after the truth, he said, show her the way. Black Eagle finally met his eyes. Manuel knew he was being hunted. He left clues that could only be followed by someone who knew both White and Paiute lands. The revelation hit Sophia like a shot. Manuel didn't just know Black Eagle. He had planned everything, foreseeing that one day she would need this alliance. His marriage, which had begun as a survival strategy, had deeper roots than he imagined. The distant sound of rolling stones interrupted his thoughts. Within seconds, they were both crouched behind rocks, weapons drawn. 3 horsemen emerged from the mist, the same brigands as the night before. There must be another way, Sophia whispered. There isn't, Black Eagle replied. But I know this valley better than they do. The ancient spirits will protect us. They waited for the bandits to pass before beginning their own descent. The valley was a natural labyrinth of canyons and narrow passages where the echo played tricks on the senses. Sophia realized why so many had gotten lost there. Each turn looked identical to the last, each rocky wall a mirror of the last. The fog made everything even more confusing, but Black Eagle moved with the certainty of someone who knows every step of the way. Occasionally, he stopped to touch ancient markings on the rocks, symbols that only the initiated could read. Manuel studied these symbols, he revealed during one of these stops. He spent months learning the secrets of my people, not just out of interest, but because he knew they would one day be needed. Sophia felt unexpected tears well up in her eyes. Did he know he was going to die? I knew I had discovered something too dangerous to carry alone. Black Eagle gently touched his face, wiping away a tear. Your husband was a wise man, Sophia. He saw beyond the divisions between our people. The moment was interrupted by a shot that echoed through the valley. The bullet ricocheted off a nearby rock, sending shrapnel in all directions. The brigands had returned, now in a vantage position above them. There, one of them shouted, Pacific Western's $2,000. Sophia and Black Eagle separated, seeking cover as more shots were fired. The fog now worked in their favor, making it difficult for snipers to aim accurately. The echoes, Black Eagle shouted. Use it against them. Sophia understood instantly. He fired his rifle in one direction while running in another, causing the sound to reverberate across the valley. The bandits, confused, shot at where they thought she was. Black Eagle took advantage of the distraction to silently climb the rocks. Sophia saw him disappear into the mist, moving like a spirit among the shadows. Moments later, a scream was heard, and one of the bandits fell, hit by an arrow. The other 2 men, realizing they had lost the advantage, retreated to a higher position. Sophia maintained covering fire, allowing Black Eagle to reposition itself. We need to reach the southern passage, he shouted. There is a sacred cave where we can take shelter. Sophia ran, crouched low, as bullets continued to ricochet off the rocks. His heart beat violently, not just from the danger, but from the adrenaline of fighting alongside Black Eagle. There was a synchronicity between them that transcended words, as if their souls danced to the same ancient mountain music. Finally, They reached the cave, an almost invisible opening in the canyon wall. Inside, they discovered even more elaborate cave paintings than before, scenes of Paiute battles, ceremonies, and sacred stories. "This place is protected by spirits," Black Eagle explained, lighting a small torch. "The bandits won't dare enter, even if they find us." As they caught their breath, Sophia realized that something had changed between them. The intensity of the moment, the revelations about Manuel, the shared danger, everything combined to create an intimacy that could no longer be denied. "Why did you actually agree to marry me?" she asked softly. Black Eagle stared at her for a long time before responding. "At first it was because of the promise made to Manuel, then because of the need to protect our lands." He moved closer, his gentle touch on your face sending shivers down your spine. Now it's for something much deeper." Sophia felt her heart speed up again, but for a completely different reason. The dancing shadows of the torches transformed Black Eagle's face into a mask of mystery and promise. "We need to survive this journey," she whispered. "There is still a lot to discover." "Yes," he replied, his voice hoarse with emotion, "about the past and about us." The distant sound of hooves brought them back to reality. The bandits were still out there, searching. But now, hidden in that ancient cave, Sophia and Black Eagle had found something that no danger could threaten, a truth that transcended their differences and united their destinies in ways that not even Manuel could have predicted. Dawn found Sophia and Black Eagle leaving the sacred cave with extreme caution. The fog began to dissipate, revealing a blue sky so intense it seemed unreal. The bandits had disappeared during the night, but their tracks were still visible in the loose rocks and empty cartridges scattered across the valley. "They will be back," Black Eagle commented as he examined the markings on the ground. "With reinforcements, probably. Pacific Western won't give up their $2,000 easily." Sophia adjusted the rifle behind her back, feeling the weight of the previous night's revelations. What did Manuel discover that's worth so much money? And why involve Paiute land in this? "Perhaps the answers are connected," he replied, mounting his horse with characteristic grace. "Your husband understood something few white people could see, that our land and yours are part of the same story." They rode through the rest of the valley in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The closeness they had shared in the sacred cave hung between them like an unspoken promise, making every look they exchanged more meaningful. At noon, they reached an abandoned trading post near the Utah border. The place was in ruins, but it still offered temporary shelter and, more importantly, a chance to check their supplies and rest the horses. "Manuel stopped here," Black Eagle revealed as they examined the dusty interior of the station. "It was your last camp before." "Before he was found dead," Sophia added, her voice breaking. "How do you know that?" "Because I followed you here." The confession came out heavy, loaded with long-held guilt. "He asked me to watch him from a distance. He said he needed a witness in case something happened." Sophia felt her legs weaken, needing to lean on an old table to keep her balance. Did you see who killed him?" "Not directly, but I saw 3 men leaving the place the next morning. 2 of them were wearing Pacific Western badges." Black Eagle approached, his eyes revealing ancient pain. "When I found Manuel, he was still breathing. His last words were about documents hidden in Salt Lake City and about you." Silent tears ran down Sophia's face as she absorbed that revelation. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait so long?" "Because he made me promise to only reveal it when you were ready and protected." Black Eagle gently touched her face, wiping her tears. "Marriage wasn't just a strategy to save our lands, Sophia. It was the last protection Manuel planned for you." The truth struck Sophia like lightning from a clear sky. Her late husband not only knew Black Eagle, he had orchestrated their union foreseeing that Pacific Western would one day come after everything he had discovered. "What exactly did he discover?" she asked, her voice regaining strength. "Fraud on a massive scale. Pacific Western was forging land titles not just in Nevada, but throughout the territory, using forged documents to claim Indian and settler property." Black Eagle took out a folded paper from his coat. "This map shows all the lands they plan to take, including Rancho Esperanza and our sacred territories." Sophia examined the map, recognizing Manuel's handwriting in the marginal notes. He was gathering evidence. And he discovered something even greater: gold. Black Eagle pointed to specific markings on the map. "Not on our land, but under property the railroad had already taken. They didn't just want the rights of way, they wanted the riches hidden in the ground." A noise outside interrupted the conversation. Quickly both drew their weapons, positioning themselves strategically. Through the dusty window, they saw more knights approaching. Not brigands this time, but well-dressed men led by a familiar figure. "Harrison Blake," Sophia whispered, recognizing the Pacific Western lawyer. "They caught up with us," Black Eagle muttered, weighing his options. "The post has a back exit, but we'll need to fight to reach the horses." Sophia carefully folded the map and kept it close to her chest. "Then we will fight. For Manuel, for our lands, for everything we have built together." Their gazes met, charged with an intensity that transcended the imminent danger. In that moment, Sophia understood that her heart had made a choice long before her mind accepted it. She was not only fighting for the past, but also for a future that she wanted to build alongside Black Eagle. "Together?" she asked, her hand finding his. "Always," he replied, and in that single word was contained a promise far greater than their initial marriage agreement. Blake's men began to surround the post, their voices carrying orders and threats through the afternoon air. Sophia and Black Eagle prepared for yet another battle, knowing that the true test of their union was just beginning. The truth about Manuel's death had finally come to light, but with it came new challenges and dangers. However, as Sophia watched Black Eagle move silently around the room, planning his defense, she felt a deep certainty. Regardless of the outcome of this fight, her heart had found a new home, not on a ranch or on sacred lands, but in the unexpected love that had been born between two different worlds. The sun began its descent over the horizon, painting the sky with colors that resembled blood and gold, the same elements that had triggered the whole story. And as the men of Pacific Western approached, Sophia and Black Eagle prepared to defend not only the long-buried truth, but also the love they had discovered along the way. The sun was setting on the horizon when the first gunshots echoed through the abandoned trading post. Sophia and Black Eagle had positioned themselves strategically, she near the back window, he guarding the side entrance. Manuel's map, now kept safely next to Sophia's chest, weighed like lead, loaded with truths that cost a life. "Lady Black Eagle," Harrison Blake's voice cut through the afternoon air. "We know they're in there. Hand over your documents and we'll guarantee your safe passage back to Nevada." "How did you guarantee Manuel's safe passage?" Sophia shouted back, her voice filled with bitterness. "Or would you rather tell how your men ambushed him right here?" A heavy silence followed his words. Sophia exchanged a meaningful look with Black Eagle, who had silently moved to a better position. Through the rotten boards of the post, they could see at least 8 men surrounding the place. "Your husband made foolish choices," Blake continued. "Choices that led you to an inevitable end. Don't make the same mistakes." "The only foolish choice was to trust Pacific Western," Sophia replied, as she readied her rifle. "How many other families have you destroyed? How much land have you stolen with false documents?" The sound of approaching hooves interrupted the dialogue. Through a gap in the wall, Black Eagle saw more riders arriving. but these were not wearing railroad badges. "Sheriff Curtis?" he whispered, recognizing the familiar figure leading the group. Sophia risked a quick look. Malcolm Curtis had arrived with at least a dozen men, including some Paiute warriors she recognized from Black Eagle's camp. "Blake!" the sheriff's voice thundered across the valley. "You and your men are surrounded. We have warrants for your arrest from Carson City for fraud and murder." The lawyer let out a bitter laugh. "Too late, Sheriff. Pacific Western already has control over half the territory. A few old papers won't change that." "But these will change." Luna Crescent emerged alongside the sheriff, holding documents that Sophia recognized immediately. They were copies of the evidence Manuel had gathered. My brother wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Chaos erupted in a matter of seconds. Blake's men opened fire on the sheriff's group, turning the trading post into a battlefield. Sophia and Aguia Negra took advantage of the confusion to move to the back of the building, where their horses were waiting. "We need to get to Salt Lake City," Sophia screamed over the sound of gunshots. "Manuel's original documents will complete the evidence." Black Eagle nodded, covering her retreat as she mounted. A shot grazed his shoulder, staining his shirt with blood, but he barely seemed to notice, focused on protecting his wife. "Don't let them escape," Blake ordered, noticing his escape. "The documents cannot reach the city." What followed was a frantic chase through the arid territory of Utah. Sophia and Black Eagle rode side by side, their horses pushed to the limit as bullets whizzed around them. The sun had already completely disappeared, leaving only a purple sky that was quickly darkening. "There!" Black Eagle pointed to a familiar rock formation. "There is a passage that will take us straight to the Salt Lake Valley." They made a sharp turn, taking advantage of their knowledge of the terrain to gain an advantage. Some of the pursuers, less familiar with the region, wasted time looking for alternative routes. Night had completely fallen when they finally saw the lights of Salt Lake City, but Blake and his men still pursued them, now closer than ever. "Manuel's office is on Main Street," Sophia panted, her horse showing signs of exhaustion. "We need to get there." The city streets were practically deserted at that hour, the sound of hooves echoing against the buildings like thunder. Shots continued to be fired, now ricocheting off walls and windows, waking up citizens. Finally, they reached the small office. Sophia quickly dismounted, her hands shaking as she searched for the key that Manuel always kept hidden under a loose board. "Sophia," Black Eagle called softly, making her turn around. She gasped as she saw blood flowing freely from her shoulder. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he assured, although his pallor said otherwise. "We need to find the documents." Inside the office, Sophia went straight to a place only she knew, a secret compartment that Manuel had built behind a bookshelf. There, she found exactly what they were looking for: original documents proving Pacific Western's fraud, along with a diary detailing all of her late husband's discoveries. "It's over." Blake appeared in the doorway, gun drawn. "Hand over everything now." "No," Sophia replied firmly, placing herself between the weapon and Black Eagle. "It's over for you, Blake. Sheriff Curtis is already on his way with the territorial authorities." As if to confirm his words, the sound of several approaching horsemen filled the street. Blake glanced nervously over her shoulder, her confidence finally wavering. "Pacific Western will fall," Black Eagle declared, his voice strong despite the pain. "And with her, all his crimes will come to light." The lawyer seemed to age decades in seconds, realizing that his defeat was inevitable. When Sheriff Curtis and his men burst into the office, they found Blake sitting in a chair, his gun abandoned on the floor. The next few hours were a blur of depositions and documents being organized. Dawn found Sophia and Black Eagle at the local hospital, where he received treatment for his injury. "Manuel would be proud," he said softly, as Sophia held his hand. "Not only that we exposed the truth, but that we found something he always wanted for you. a new beginning. Sophia felt hot tears roll down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. Our marriage started as a promise to him, but it turned into something much bigger. In love, Black Eagle finished simply, pulling her closer. In love, she agreed, finally allowing herself to fully embrace the feelings that had grown between them. A week later, they returned to Rancho Esperanza as heroes. Pacific Western was in ruins, its directors imprisoned or on the run. The stolen lands were returned to their rightful owners, and a new settlement was established, respecting both the rights of the settlers and the Paiute. That night, under a starry sky that seemed brighter than ever, Sophia and Black Eagle stood on the ranch's porch, their bodies and souls intertwined as their land now was. "What did Manuel write in his diary?" Sophia asked softly. "About us?" Black Eagle smiled, remembering the words he had read. He wrote that sometimes fate weaves paths that seem unlikely, but are exactly what our hearts need to heal and blossom again. Sophia closed her eyes, feeling the truth of those words in every fiber of her being. What had begun as an agreement of convenience had turned into the most profound of love stories. A story written in the ancient lands of Nevada, where two different worlds met and became one.